If you're over 55 and want to get stronger without getting hurt, well then keep watching. We are going to give you our #1 injury prevention strategy when starting strength training. Hey there, it's Jack and Brody from Be Mobile Physio. If you're new to the channel, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Now, every day we work with adults over 55 to help them get started with strength training. But a reason many don't start is from fear of injury.
The fact is, injuries do happen when you're exercising and you can never prevent them completely. But there is one strategy you can use which will reliably reduce your likelihood of getting hurt with strength training, and we're going to talk about that today.
And stick around because we're going to cover 3 strategies you would have expected to be on this list and why they're not. Our #1 injury prevention strategy is to start low and go slow. Your motivation is going to be at an all-time high when you're first starting an exercise program, and it's tempting to jump in and go full steam ahead. But this will likely end up in injury or soreness. Then you stop exercising and then start and then stop, and this is what we refer to as the boom-bust cycle. In reality, your joints and muscles need time to adapt to the new demands.
So when you begin a new strength training program, be sure to start low. You might use really light weights to begin with, or even just body weight for some of the strength exercises. Some muscle soreness and stiffness is pretty common after those first few workouts, so don't worry too much, your body will adapt to that with time. Now, you might see people on the internet lifting really heavy weights and doing other impressive exercises, and while that's great for them, you shouldn't compare yourself. Everyone is going to be at a different point in their exercise journey, so be sure to pick something that is challenging but comfortable for you to begin with. Now, once you've made your start with your strength training, the next part of our strategy comes in, which is to go slow. By that, we mean we want to progress the challenge of the exercises slowly over time and not make any sudden big jumps in intensity of exercise or with the weight that we're using. Let's go through an example. Say you started out with a body weight squat. You've done a couple of sessions of that and you're starting to feel ready to increase the challenge. We're just going to make a small increase by adding a little bit of weight, maybe just a couple of kilograms to start with. Then you're going to get comfortable doing those squats with that bit of extra challenge. Over time, maybe a couple more sessions, a couple more weeks go by and you're feeling ready to increase the challenge a bit, make another small increase in the weight. But each time, those weight increases are just small jumps, giving your body time to adapt to that new challenge. So that is what we mean by the go slow part of this strategy. Over time, building up the weight slowly and gradually as you get stronger, and that is going to be a great way to reduce the likelihood of getting hurt.
But if you do find yourself hurt, don't stop training altogether. Even if you're injured, do something rather than nothing. It might seem counterintuitive. However, if you build up your consistency of strength training over a long period of time, you're going to build tolerance to all the exercise and stress demands that you're putting on your body. So let's take the overhead press as an example. Perhaps you've got a pain or injury around your shoulder which is making this exercise difficult. Rather than stopping it altogether, we can modify. So for example, I might reduce the weight of the exercise, which might make it easier. Or I could try an alternative, which is still working my shoulder muscles, but just a slightly different exercise. That's what we call a front raise. And if that's still intolerable, you could do some bicep curls instead because we're still working our upper limb. And remember, if all else fails and you've got one sore shoulder, you've still got the other one to work out, which is still going to have some great benefits. So remember to always modify your exercise so that you can keep in the strength training game. And as a summary, remember to start low and go slow with your exercise, and always do something rather than nothing if you do find yourself hurt or injured. So start low, go slow is our #1 injury prevention strategy when starting strength training.
Now let's briefly discuss 3 strategies you might have expected us to talk about and why they're not so important for injury prevention. So what about warm-ups? Well, certain types of warm-ups have definitely been shown to reduce the rates of injuries in specific sporting activities, things like playing rugby or football. But when it comes to warm-ups for strength training, there's actually a real lack of research. We can't say for sure that warming up before doing some strength training is going to reliably reduce your likelihood of injuries. But that doesn't mean warm-ups are completely useless. At Be Mobile, we think warm-ups are great for preparing you both physically and mentally for the exercise that you're about to undertake. But the warm-up doesn't have to be long or complicated. A simple warm-up for a strength training workout might look something like this. Firstly, you might start with some general activity just to get the body starting to feel a bit warmer. If you're at the gym, you might jump on the bike or the treadmill for a couple of minutes to get the heart rate up and get you feeling warm. But if you don't have access to those, just some marching or jogging on the spot for a little bit can be a great way to start. Then you're going to move into a few lighter versions of movements that are going to be coming up in your workout. So just some simple things like some squats to get your legs warmed up, maybe some toe touches into an overhead reach for warming up for deadlifts and overhead presses. You could add some arm circles or some pushes and pulls just to get the body prepared for the exercises that are coming up. The point is you don't have to spend too much time on any of this stuff because warm-ups probably aren't crucial for injury prevention. Just do enough to get you feeling ready for the workout that you've got coming up.
So what about stretching before strength training? Well, the research shows this is not an effective injury prevention strategy. So instead of focusing all your time on stretching, you might as well focus on slowly building up the challenge of the exercise. Remember, our number one injury prevention strategy is to start low and go slow.
And lastly, you might be wondering why we haven't put lifting with proper technique as an important injury prevention strategy. Well, interestingly, the research we have to date actually hasn't shown that the way people lift or lifting with a perfect technique reduces injury rates at all. The fact is, the human beings are very varied in their anatomy and their movement patterns. There's no one perfect technique that's going to suit everyone, and everyone is going to do things a little bit differently. Let's use the squat as an example. There is no perfect squat technique that is going to suit everyone. We're all going to do it in different ways. For example, some people do it better with a wider stance and their feet turned out. Some people are going to find it much more comfortable to do a narrow stance. Some people like to really bend forward as they squat, whereas others like me can keep a much more upright torso. There are lots of different options. You can hold the weight at the front, you can put on a backpack or hold a barbell on your back. So there's all different ways to make the squat more challenging. And in all of those ways, there is no one technique that will suit everybody. That's why we say that proper technique or perfect technique is not an effective injury prevention strategy. What you should focus on is starting with something you can comfortably manage and building up gradually over time. As we said, the number one tip is start low, go slow.
If you're ready to take the next step and start strength training, well then make sure you check out this next video on screen where we give you 6 key exercises for your independence.